Hey y'all, so in this video I'm going to be talking about revision of your poems, getting your poems together. So a lot of times when we write poetry, we think that it's more loose, and it kind of is when it comes to like the rules. But just like you would write a rough draft or multiple rough drafts for a story or a personal narrative, you have to do some editing of your poems as well. And this can be hard, especially for poetry, because it seems so intimate. It seems like something that's such a part of you. I know for me at least, it's difficult because I'm a perfectionist. So I edit as I go, as I write, because I want things to sound the way that I want them to sound. So I play with it a lot. I'll cut out words and phrases and add in words and phrases and move lines around as I go. So, but revision is still necessary. It's necessary for everybody. Because it really does make your finished product better and more polished and more thought out. Even if, see, here's the thing with these exercises. I'm going to give y'all a list of exercises to do to your finished poems. Here's the thing with these. Even if you try it and you decide that you like the original version better, it still causes you to think, like, to consider and to analyze. You're really just analyzing your poetry so deeply, so that even if you decide that you like the original version better, at least you thought it out to the T. You know what I'm saying? So you're satisfied and you don't have any regrets about the finished product. All right. So that being said, here's what I want y'all to do. So you have your finished poem in front of you right now, hopefully, because you're watching the video. While you're watching the video, I mean, and whether it's just a free verse or whether it's a different type, a different poetic form. So you have that in front of you right now. What I want you to do is, the first thing we're going to do is eliminate to be verbs and replace them with strong action verbs. Now, a verb, as y'all know, is the act of like doing something, right? It's an action. So let's think of some sentences. I want you to look through your poems and look at the lines and see if you have verbs, to be verbs. So to be verbs are is, are, was, were, be, and becoming. Those are the main to be verbs. All right. So the reason why we want to replace these to be verbs is because they are so vague. They don't do they don't really effectively get your point across. They don't effectively create an image in the reader's mind. They're very vague and they're very I don't know how to explain it. They're plain. They're plain words. Okay, so we want to replace those with strong action verbs. So let me give you an example. She went to the closet to look for her school uniform, right? It's a decent sentence. It's not bad. It's kind of specific, but we can make it better by replacing that to be verb with a strong action verb. So went is sort of like plain. It's she went. Okay. So let's replace that with a strong action verb. She trudged to her closet and reluctantly pulled, the doors open in search of her school uniform. You see, by using the word trudged, by replacing went with trudged, what I'm doing is I am further giving you an idea of, the mood of the character. She's tired. Trudge implies that she's tired, she's exhausted. She doesn't feel like doing what she's doing, right? If I would have used the word sprinted, she sprinted to her closet in search of her school uniform. That creates a sense of urgency that it makes it seem like she's in a rush, she's in a hurry, maybe she's late for school. So it really, really does make a difference which verbs you use. And so that's what I want you to do, is just go through your poems, look through them, and try to eliminate as many plain, bland, basic verbs as possible and replace those with strong action verbs. So that's the first thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is Look for consonants and assonance and alliteration. So I talked about this in the terms and definitions video. I talked about consonants, assonance, and alliteration. So what I want you to do is I want you to look for that within your own poem, and I want you to underline, use different color pens to underline like when you see those things. So let's say you have a line. I'm going to use the same example for alliteration. 7 slithery snakes. So I want you to take a certain color pen, not matter, we'll just say red. Take a red pen and underline the S at the beginning of each word to indicate alliteration. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing I want you to do is take a different colored pen. We'll say purple. It doesn't matter. We'll say purple. And I want you to underline the letters that show consonants. So if you have a series of words with T at the end, for example, I want you to underline the T of each of those words with a purple pen or whatever color pen to indicate consonants. And then finally do the same thing, a different colored pen, we'll say green, whatever, to indicate assonance. So I want you to underline the vowel sounds within the word that rhyme or are similar. So that's what the second thing I want you to do is look out for those. Like I said, it creates a whole nother depth to your poems, and it makes them more fun and more interesting to read, and it really contributes to the overall rhythm of your poem. So that's the second thing I want you to do. The third thing I want you to do is eliminate abstract words. I talked about abstract versus concrete as well in that definitions video. We talked about words like love, pain, and hate. I'm going to use the same 3 examples so that you know, just to keep it consistent. So wherever you see the word love, hate, these very vague emotions, I want you to replace those abstract words with specific concrete examples. All right? Like I said in the previous video, I said I love him very much. That was the abstract version, right? And I redid it in my mind to say, he cradles me in his rose petal arms. I find home here, or something like that. And he soothes me with his words, sweet like honey. So that's creating an example for the reader that they can relate to. So that's what I want you to do. Go throughout the lines. See if you see any abstract or cliche sort of words, and I want you to replace those with examples that relate to your own personal experience. I want you to replace those with like detailed representations of what do those words mean to you. All right, if that makes sense. And then I want you to choose 3 lines to rewrite for whatever reason. It might even be 3 lines that you like. They don't have to be abstract lines or to be verb lines or things like that. They can be nice lines that you like, but I want you to choose at least 3 of them and rewrite them. The reason for this is I want you to see all the different opportunities that you have, right? The first way that you write it is not necessarily the right way or the way that you'll end up writing it. So if you rewrite a couple lines, what you're doing is you're thinking of different ways to say the same thing, and one might sound better than the other. You might write something and you kind of like the way it sounds, but then you explore different words and different ways to say that, and you rewrite it. Now maybe you like the way that one sounds better, and maybe you don't, but the purpose is to just explore all options. So lastly, I want you to ask yourself one question: does it make sense? A lot of times there's a myth about poetry that it's sort of like super, super abstract, and nobody is supposed to know what it means, and nobody can understand what it means. Like, no, that's not real. Good poetry is not vague to the point where the reader cannot even understand your train of thought. That's not how poetry is supposed to be. The reader is really supposed to be able to relate to the poem, because that's where you draw that emotion from. That's where you create an emotional connection and establish a relationship with the reader. So in order for you to do that, they have to be able to understand what you're saying. That's why I say be very careful when it comes to abstract and vagueness and not explaining things in detail. So this asks yourself the question, does it make sense? Have somebody proofread your work for you. Have somebody peer edit it. If they can't understand what you're talking about and they're lost and they have no idea what you mean, maybe that's a place in your poem where you should consider saying it in a different way, making it easier to understand. All right, so that is my revision video. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Hopefully you'll try some of these exercises and you will like your final product even better than the original version. Remember, every good author still needs to keep in mind revision is key. So, all right, thank you for watching my video.